If you've ever stood in a room full of your own belongings and still felt poor, this story is for you. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with your bank balance. It's the tiredness of carrying things, objects, plans, comparisons, that you never agreed to carry in the first place. You call it stress, you call it ambition. But underneath it, most nights, it's just weight. And weight, unlike money, never shows up on a statement. Today I want to tell you about a merchant who owned almost everything a man in his city could own, and a monk who owned almost nothing, and the single morning when the merchant finally understood which of them was rich. The merchant asked the monk a question he thought had an obvious answer. The monk gave him 7 words in return. Those 7 words would undo 40 years of accumulation in less time than it takes to pour tea. But we'll get to that. First, you need to understand how a man builds a life so full it becomes a cage. Before we go further, tell me in the comments honestly, what is the one thing you own that you were sure would make you feel secure and didn't? You might be surprised how many people are about to write the same answer. The merchant's name was Cassian, and he lived in a harbor city where the wind always smelled of salt and cut cedar. His warehouses stood in a row along the water, 5 of them, then 7, then 11. Each one built the year after a better one had failed to satisfy him. He had traded silk, then spice, then glass, then finally settled on something more honest. He traded in the feeling of not enough, buying and reselling it without ever naming what he was actually doing. By 40, Cassian owned 3 houses, though he slept in only one. He owned 4 ships, though he had not personally sailed on any of them in over a decade. His table was set each night with dishes from 6 different provinces, though he ate quickly and remembered almost none of the meals. His rooms were full. Carved chests, imported rugs, a library of scrolls he intended to read someday. And yet every night, lying in the largest bed he had ever owned, Cassian felt a specific cold sensation spreading through his chest. It was the feeling of a man who has built a wall so wide he can no longer see over it to check if anyone is actually there. He remembered, if he let himself, a much smaller house from his boyhood. 2 rooms, a single window, the smell of his mother's bread overpowering everything else in the world for the length of an afternoon. He remembered thinking, as a boy, that if he ever had enough, he would feel something like that smell all the time. Warm, whole, unhurried. He had since acquired 11 times the space and could not remember the last time he had felt anything close to it. He did not connect these 2 facts. Most people don't, not while they're still inside the acquiring. He told himself it was ambition. He told his wife it was responsibility, providing for the family, securing the future. He told his rivals when they asked how much was enough that he would know it when he saw it. But he never saw it because the horizon of enough kept moving exactly as fast as he did. His weakness had a shape you'll recognize. It wasn't greed in the cartoonish sense. Cassian gave generously to the temple, paid his workers fairly, was not a cruel man. His weakness was quieter than greed. It was the belief that the next acquisition would finally be the one that let him exhale. One more warehouse, one more contract, one more number, and then he would rest. You have probably made that same private bargain with yourself, dressed in different clothes. A promotion, a square footage, a follower count. The bargain is always the same shape. Peace, deferred, pending one more thing. One afternoon in late autumn, a monk named Io arrived in the harbor district. He had walked from the inland monasteries with a single bowl, a single robe, and sandals worn thin enough to show the shape of his feet through the leather. He asked for nothing but water and a place to sit, and he sat, day after day, beneath the old fig tree near the fish market, speaking with anyone who stopped long enough to speak with him. But what Cassian didn't know, as he first noticed this strange, empty-handed man from his carriage window, was that Io had once owned almost as much as Cassian did. Word reached Cassian slowly, the way important things often do. Through a servant who had heard it from a dock worker, who had heard it from a trader who had once done business 3 provinces east. The monk sitting under the fig tree had, years earlier, been the wealthiest textile merchant in an entire province. Warehouses, ships, a household of 40. And then, one winter, he had given nearly all of it away and walked out with a bowl. This is where everything in Cassian began to shift, though he wouldn't admit it yet. He could not stop thinking about it. A man who had held everything Cassian was still reaching for, and had set it down, apparently without regret. apparently sleeping better on a mat under a tree than Cassian slept in a bed carved from imported rosewood. It offended something in him. It also, if he was honest in the smallest, most private corner of himself, made him curious in a way that frightened him. And here is something worth remembering, because it matters later too. In the weeks before Cassian worked up the nerve to approach him, he sent a servant to watch the monk from a distance, half expecting to catch him in some hidden comfort. A hoarded coin, a secret meal, some proof that the emptiness was theater. The servant returned and reported only that the monk gave away half of whatever food he was offered to whoever happened to be hungrier that day, and slept the same number of hours whether the night was warm or bitterly cold. There was no performance to catch him in. That unsettled Cassian more than any accusation could have. So Cassian did something he had not done in years. He walked instead of being carried. He crossed the market at dusk, past the fishmongers closing their stalls, past children chasing a hoop between the carts, and he sat down, awkwardly in silk robes unsuited to sitting on packed earth, across from the monk under the fig tree. Remember this detail. It matters later. Cassian did not ask his question right away. For a long while, the two men simply sat as the light went orange and then gray, and Cassian found to his own surprise that the silence did not feel like the silence in his own house. His house's silence was full of things watching him. This silence was empty in a way that felt, oddly, like room to breathe. Finally, Cassian spoke. He asked the question he had walked across the market to ask, the question underneath every deal he had ever made, every warehouse he had ever built. He asked it as a challenge, expecting to win it. "You had everything I have," Cassian said, "and you gave it away. So tell me, what did you gain that was worth more than all of it?" He expected a long answer, a parable perhaps, or a lecture on virtue. He had, if he was honest, already prepared his rebuttal. But this is where everything changed, and where the loop we opened at the very start of this story finally closes. Io did not answer quickly. He looked at Cassian's hands, soft, unmarked by labor, adorned with 2 rings, and then at his own, weathered and empty. And then he said the 7 words that Cassian would carry for the rest of his life, longer than he had ever carried any single possession. I stopped needing it to answer for me. That was all. 7 words, offered without theater, without triumph. Cassian waited for more, the way you might wait for the second half of a sentence that never comes, because there was no second half. That was the entire answer, not a technique, not a system, a single sentence about what he had stopped asking his belongings to do. Let the weight of that settle the way it settled on Cassian, sitting there in the dirt in robes worth more than the monk's entire visible life. Io was not saying wealth was evil, or that ships and warehouses were sins, or that Cassian should walk into the harbor and give it all away by morning. He was saying something far more precise and far harder to escape. He was saying that for most of his life, every acquisition had been a question he was asking the world. Am I safe? Am I enough? Am I someone? And he had been waiting for a warehouse, a ship, a number to answer it for him. And warehouses cannot answer that question. Numbers were never built to hold that kind of weight. He had simply one winter stopped handing them a job they were never equipped to do. This is the concept underneath everything I want you to take from this story. Attachment is not about how much you own. It is about what you are asking your possessions to prove. A person with 1 room and 1 bowl can be as attached, as anxious, as owned by their belongings as a person with 11 warehouses. If that 1 room is still being asked to answer the question, am I enough? And a person with considerable wealth can be entirely free of it, if nothing they hold is being asked to speak for their worth. That merchant sitting in the dirt is you, every time you refresh a banking app hoping the number will finally exhale for you. That warehouse is your closet, your inbox, your calendar crowded with commitments you took on to prove something to someone who, if you're honest, probably wasn't even watching. Minimalism, in the way this story means it, was never really about owning fewer things. Owning fewer things is just the visible symptom of a much quieter shift. The shift of no longer outsourcing your sense of enoughness to anything outside yourself. That's the whole of it, not a lifestyle aesthetic. A withdrawal of a question you had been asking the wrong things to answer. This is also, quietly, the actual mechanism of getting wealthier that this story is naming, though it will not look like the mechanisms you're used to hearing about. When you stop needing your possessions to answer for you, three things happen almost immediately. You stop buying to silence anxiety, which means more of what comes in actually stays. You stop measuring your life against everyone else's warehouses, which means you stop making decisions engineered to impress rather than to serve you. And you start recognizing sufficiency you already have, instead of pushing it endlessly over the horizon. None of that requires poverty. Eo wasn't poor because he was wise. He was at peace because he had stopped asking objects to do a job that belonged to him alone. So let's make this practical, because a story without application is only a nice feeling that fades by morning. Tonight, before you sleep, take 5 minutes and write down 3 things in your life right now that money did not buy and cannot buy that you already possess. Not gratitude journal fluff. Be specific. The particular quality of your own attention when you're doing something you love. A friendship that has outlasted every financial season you've been through. The simple fact that you woke up this morning able to choose what kind of day to try to have. Naming these does something almost mechanical to the nervous system. It interrupts, however briefly, the reflex that keeps scanning for what's missing. Second, choose one object in your home this week, just one, that you have been keeping to answer a question, rather than to serve a purpose. Something you don't use, don't love, but keep because letting it go would feel like admitting something. You don't have to get rid of it today. Just hold it and ask it honestly. What question am I still asking you to answer for me? Often the noticing does more work than the discarding. You may find it's a certificate that was supposed to prove you were capable. A gift you keep out of guilt rather than warmth. A gadget bought during a season when you were trying to convince yourself or someone else that you had arrived somewhere. Naming the question out loud tends to loosen its grip faster than any decluttering method ever could, because you are no longer fighting the object. You are finally addressing what you were actually asking of it. Third, the next time you catch yourself about to buy, commit to, or chase something specifically because someone else has it, pause for one full breath before you act. Not to shame the impulse. Comparison is human, and pretending you're above it only buries it deeper. Just pause long enough to ask what you're actually hoping the thing will say about you. Sometimes you'll go ahead anyway, and that's fine. But you'll go ahead as the one choosing, instead of the one being pulled. Picture Eo now, years after that conversation, sitting beneath the same fig tree as the harbor light turns copper at the end of another ordinary day. His bowl is still empty beside him, waiting for tomorrow's rice. And he is, by any measure the market would use, a poor man. And yet, there is nothing in his posture of a man waiting for anything to arrive and complete him. Cassian, for his part, did not give away his warehouses. That was never the lesson, and it would be a lie to tell you it was. What changed was quieter, and, in its own way, harder. He kept the ships, kept the trade, kept the rosewood bed, but he stopped asking any of it to tell him he was safe. He began slowly to notice the difference between a life that is full and a life that is merely loaded down. And on the nights the old cold feeling still crept in, he found he no longer needed a 12th warehouse to answer it. He had, at least once, sat in the dirt and heard 7 words that did the answering instead. That is the real inheritance of this story, and it belongs to you as much as it belonged to him. You were never actually chasing more things. You were chasing a feeling those things were never able to hold. Set that question down, even for tonight, and notice what you already have standing quietly behind it, waiting to be counted. Walk gently, hold loosely. If this story gave you even a single moment of that quiet, there are more waiting for you here. Next time, I'll tell you about a king who traded his crown for one night of sleep, and what he asked for in return when he finally woke. Walk gently, hold loosely.